Hello everyone, I hope you have been keeping well. In this video, I would like to address a very specific experience that we can all find ourselves in, and that is going to be anger. Anger is one of the most intense emotions that we can find ourselves in, that we can find ourselves all of a sudden consumed by. And I'm going to break down a few different aspects of where I feel anger could be coming from, although anger can come from many places, many experiences, many stored energies within ourselves. But because we are going through a very rapid time of transformation, of shifting, and of course purging, anger is naturally going to be a byproduct of these events that are happening, unfolding within ourselves, within our greater timeline. And so with this video, I'm hoping to include some guidance for navigating anger and knowing that you're not crazy, that we are not crazy, and anger is a natural byproduct of circumstances that we have gone through, energies that we are holding within ourselves, and it's a form of expression. In society, modern society, we can look at anger as being shameful, as being something bad, or feeling within ourselves if we become angry that we're not right, that we're doing something wrong, we're misbehaving, we're not being like how society wants us to be, essentially. But the more pressure that we put on ourselves, the harder we become on ourselves. Now, I have to also let you know that I deal with anger on a semi-frequent basis. I have very deep anger within myself. Some of the anger is mine. Some of the anger is the world's. Some of the anger will be other people's anger, taking on other people's energy and emotions and feelings, and maybe some of the pressures of the world as well. I can feel most of the time when it is mine, and some of it may be caused by the planet. Some of it may be caused by a purging of emotions that are coming through me and need to find an outlet. I truly feel that anger is a very healthy way to get energy out of ourselves, get energy out of our system, even though it may feel destructive and it may feel unhealthy. I realize there are probably unhealthy ways of working through anger versus more conscious or healthy ways of working through anger, which I will talk about. But I want everyone out there to know, I want you to know that anger is a natural emotion and a natural expression that we all have. The secret is to learn how to work with it consciously, or as consciously as we can work with it, all right? And being aware of when it's showing up, what it's trying to show us, and how we can work through it in the best way possible. Like I said, I have had a lot of anger within myself. I would say that in my past life experiences, I would have succumbed to anger unconsciously. I would also have to say that even today, in my present or current time, I shouldn't say maybe not right now at this exact moment in time, but on a semi-frequent basis, I will go through a purge, I will go through a release, and anger will be probably my go-to, my unconscious go-to. And some of it feels completely uncontrollable. Some of it is definitely it comes in without my ability to manage it or to temper it, right? And I hear people talk about often how we can control our emotions, and I do feel to an extent we can. It's the fine line of understanding when we need to stop feeding into it versus letting it happen, letting it do its thing, and it's naturally purging and cycling and finding its way out, right? So we have to be very conscious and aware of how much are we feeding into it versus what needs to just get out, what needs to be expressed, what needs to be understood, maybe something that's brought from our unconscious into our conscious level of awareness, for example. It also is, as I mentioned, a byproduct of transformation. It's a byproduct of what we are going through right now. Anger has fueled a lot in society. We can also look at the positives of anger. Anger can fuel us to create change in our life. Anger can be very destructive in ways that maybe need to be destructive. And anger can also be destructive in ways that could be avoided, of course, but that's where we need to be conscious and aware of where the anger is coming from and the results that are going to occur because of that anger. And the more aware that we can be of our intense emotions, anger is one of them, then we will be able to understand the root cause and shine light on this shadowy aspect of ours. Anger is nothing to be ashamed of. As I mentioned, I deal with anger. Unfortunately, I can find myself triggered by situations that are closest to me. So if it's a person or if it's a certain situation in my very close environment, it can trigger a deeper anger that might come out of nowhere. That may surprise me. First of all, where is this anger coming from? What is anger? Anger is an emotional response to, one, feeling confined and unable to work through an obstacle, feeling that we are unable to get through something. So what comes in is basically a defense mechanism that wants to unconsciously break through a barrier that we feel is in our way. And so it could be a person, it could be an emotion, it could be a situation that has been buried in our unconscious. And you can almost think of your child self going back to maybe what happened in early life that has caused this great feeling of being limited, being restricted or confined or unable to get out of a situation. This can also happen with regards to our true authentic self not being able to shine fully. And I feel that it could be a few of these options, it can be all of them, it could be one. And the other option is going to be when our authentic self isn't able to shine fully, isn't able to fully express, isn't able to live freely and fully without the fears, without the confines, without the limitations, without the memories of maybe being persecuted or worst case scenario or something bad happened or something being taken away. So anger can come up. It's a very unconscious mechanism based on some of the beliefs that are embedded deep within that have prevented us from being all that we can be, that have prevented us from feeling safe to speak our truth, to be our authentic selves, to shine brightly, to love life to its fullest, right? And if we feel that we are confined and restricted, then anger can unconsciously come out in sort of random times, right? So that could be a very strong reasoning for maybe anger showing up in your life. The other one is going to be purging, a natural release of emotions. Now, anger, again, can be stored very deep within our unconscious self. There are layers to this. Again, it's a very complex and connected system within our belief system, within our emotions, within our thoughts, within our body. I should mention, based on the work from Dr. Michael Lincoln, Messages from the Body, he did reference anger to be related with inflammation. So you can think when anger starts to really heat up in our body, it can create a lot of inflammation within our body. So if you find anger is a response mechanism, or if you find anger is frequent or very strong that can show up in your life, try to, I would say, work on lessening inflammation in your body. Now, some of the natural ways to reduce inflammation can be from ice baths are really good. If you do cold plunging, you can even just jump into a cold shower or a cold bath. Even drinking turmeric and ginger tea in the morning, which I do every morning, is really great for inflammation, reducing inflammation. Turmeric is great for anti-inflammatory, or eating anti-inflammatory foods, staying away from sugar, staying away from anything that causes inflammation, and eating a very clean diet, especially if you are going through periods of anger. All right, so what do we do when anger all of a sudden erupts and takes over our conscious level of awareness or consciousness? What happens when anger from the depths totally takes over our day, our moods, our thoughts, our even physical reactions to things? Well, first of all, find an outlet for anger. Do not feel ashamed. Now, in our modern society, we have been conditioned to feel that acting certain ways is inappropriate. So if we are feeling angry, if we say something that comes from our emotional self, that comes from the depths, if we're hurt, if we're uncomfortable, if we say something, if we do something, then there can be extra guilt or shame around how we're feeling, which is insane if you think about it. It's very difficult to feel safe within ourselves and feel safe around others or in society, right, as it is. And this has been the way of our history. So acting a certain way, being a certain way, what will the neighbors think? Being judged, being shamed, it creates a lot of paranoia and self-consciousness within our unconscious self, leading to a lot of shame and guilt when we feel emotional. right? But the thing is, we also have to be aware of what we are doing in the heat of the moment so that we are, A, not disrupting our environment too much, and also allowing for an outlet so that we can express, right? So we want to find a way to get it out of the system because it does need a form of expression. So if you need to yell, if you need to say something, say it in a place that's safe, say it in a place where you can let your rage out and know that you are not crazy. This is I feel anger is a common symptom that we have within ourselves. Working with these emotions and creating a conscious relationship with it is going to be absolutely important. That would be the first step, I would say. Creating a safe, comfortable relationship with anger is crucially important. Not shying away from it, not feeling guilty, not feeling ashamed. If you are in a relationship and there's an anger outburst, let it happen and have an agreement with the two of you to be there for one another. If there is an uncontrollable anger response to something, let it out. Give yourself permission, or both of you give each other permission to let it out, let it go, and then come back together and close the loop with thank you. Thank you for giving me space. Thank you for listening to me. I love you. A hug, closing that loop and allowing for the energy and the emotions to shift into something nurturing and loving so that you are giving yourself permission, both of you are giving yourself permission to feel, to express. And again, anger should not be something to be ashamed of. And both parties, anger should not be something that we will judge someone by. We have to look at everyone, and ourselves included, as human beings going through this incredible process that we're going through. It is a process of deep healing. We are unearthing deep wounds within ourselves. We are letting it out. And when we are working with it consciously, we create more separation from it. I use this analogy a lot because we can become very unconsciously connected with the emotions and the thoughts and the behaviors, and letting those behaviors and those thoughts and those emotions rule our lives. Or we can develop a relationship of consciousness and awareness with the unconscious behaviors and thoughts and emotions, and therefore we integrate it, but we also create more separation from it over time. It doesn't mean that anger is going to be completely gone. And we also have to be real about being human, not suppressing anger and not avoiding it, and all of a sudden finding a place of bliss and completely ignoring our emotions, right? We have to feel it and work with it, and we become more sensitive around our emotions, our feelings, and understanding where are these emotions really coming from? What is my child self trying to tell me? Where is this anger and frustration of me not being all I want to be really coming from? And when we shine light on the root cause, the origin of the anger, it's not the person standing in front of us, it's not the situation around us or the place that we're in, although it can trigger and activate anger within us, it comes from somewhere deeper always, right? So what is the origin of that anger? Feeling that we can't speak our truth, we can't be all that we want to be, we're stuck, we're trapped, we're in a box, we're confined, we can't express and be open and full and free in the way that we want to be. So as I mentioned, finding an outlet for anger is crucial. Expression is going to be key. So if you need to yell, if you need to say something, no matter how visceral and violent it might feel, it might seem, get it out of your system in the safest way possible, of course. So with respect to other people, respect to your environment, but as long as you are providing an outlet for yourself to express, and getting out is really important. Also, writing down on paper, just letting all your words flow onto paper. And the more that you write, the more that you are going to see where those words are coming from, where that emotion is coming from, the true root cause. You'll start to be able to create greater awareness around the words that are coming out, and seeing the truth of the reality. Now, in the heated moments, and I know they're difficult, in the heated moments, that is where we get to actually see our unconscious. That is where we get to understand the patterns and what we are saying as false beliefs. Now, I talk about the beliefs often, the true beliefs, the false beliefs, our belief system. So it's really important to understand what those words are. So write them down on paper and differentiate your true beliefs versus your true knowing, your heart, the connection with your higher self, versus the false beliefs, which is coming from a memory or a belief or an experience from early childhood, early life, right? And it offers an incredible time for observation and for understanding your unconscious self, those false beliefs, what has been buried within that needs illumination. Once we shine light on it, once we see it for what it is, the truth that it is, we begin to let it go. So anger is a natural byproduct of the experiences of our past, the beliefs that have been ingrained in our unconscious. It is also a byproduct of what's happening in the world. But by being conscious, we are closing the loop. We are breaking cycles. Then we start to understand the source and the origin of these emotions, these feelings, the words, the belief systems, from a place of non-attachment and non-judgment. So just as a recap, if you are experiencing anger and you feel like you're losing your mind, well, you might be losing your mind so that you can find yourself, the light inside, your truth, and start to bring that out. Right? And start to move through the barriers that our unconscious self has built. It is our true self, our authenticity wanting to come out. And we get angry because we feel restricted. We feel like it is not possible. We feel that we are confined. We feel that maybe the world is a bad place and we should be angry at the limitations and the restrictions that it imposes on us. So do not be afraid of anger. Do not, of course, be hard on yourself if you are feeling angry, if you have bouts of anger, or it all of a sudden takes over your existence. Find a healthy way to give an outlet for it, to find its way out. Of course, spending time outside, exercise, paying attention to the go-to habits if you are experiencing anger. So any go-to habits, if it is alcohol, if it's food, if it is something maybe even self-destructive or unhealthy, that also will give you a really good indicator of something in the unconscious that needs a little bit of illumination. But again, it's from a place of non-judgmental. It's correction. We correct as we go. We observe, we see, we correct. And most importantly, you are not crazy. You are not crazy for feeling the way that you feel. You are not crazy for the emotions that are coming up. These are biological responses to something deeper that is wanting to find a way out. Nothing more than that. So it may feel like we are going crazy. It may feel like we're losing our mind. But in order to find our true self, there needs to be also a little bit of that deconstruction in order for us to realign. And so we end up shaking up some of these dormant beliefs within ourselves. We may also step into more of our light, more of our authentic self, and then we may run into another layer that needs our attention so that we can work through it, to dismantle that another layer, to be more and more and more in our light, in our authenticity, and all that we want to be. You can almost think back even a few decades ago, where if someone was feeling deeply, if someone was processing trauma or processing emotions, and they would have bouts of anger, they would be labeled and they would be thrown away in an asylum somewhere because they were experiencing trauma, because they were processing information and emotions. But now we're in a time where we can consciously work through this without the labels and without the worry and without the fear of how we are feeling and how we are acting. And like I said, I go through this still. But I have to reassure you also that the more conscious awareness that is developed with these moments of unconscious emotions, anger, of course, the greater relationship we create with ourselves and with our shadow. Of course, when we see these moments for the truth that they are, from a place of non-judgmental, non-attachment, we accept more of ourselves. We lean into what it feels like to be human, what it feels like to process our emotions, where it's really coming from, giving yourself a bit of ease, letting up from the pressure of trying to be perfect and trying to be like everyone else or trying to be acceptable. When the more that we try to be acceptable and to not be judged and to not be criticized and to fit in, well, the more we are suppressing ourselves and the more pressure we are carrying on our shoulders for who we are and how we're feeling. That is a byproduct of history. This goes back way, way long ago, hundreds of years ago, for how we were behaving, how we were treated when we were being authentic, when we were being real, when we were just wanting to live freely and be happy and in alignment and in balance. And so when our trust gets taken away, when something bad happens, then of course there's going to be anger as a byproduct. We are going to feel limited. We are going to feel restricted. We are going to feel confined. We are going to feel in a box. And then in our subconscious self, we will put ourselves there. Also creating a safe space for ourselves, but in the same, confining ourselves as well from being all that we want to be, from being our full light and living in our authenticity and full power. Anger is not a bad thing. It's not a bad experience. It's not a bad emotion. It's important to be conscious and aware and work with it consciously, and to find the origin of anger when it shows up, and giving yourself some space to let it out in a comfortable environment, and allowing for the process to happen. Sometimes it's a natural purge, giving yourself some space without being hard on yourself, without the criticism, internal criticism, the internal critic, without being harsh on self, without being ashamed of how you're feeling, and observing. A simple observation of how I'm feeling. Where's this anger coming from? What is it trying to show me? What is the origin of this anger? Is there something deeper that I need to look at? We are in a time right now where we need to do the inner work. It is very, very important. Finding the root cause of some of these emotions and restrictions and patterns are going to set us free. I've noticed incredible changes within myself dealing with anger, of course. Not saying that it's not there and it doesn't show up. It definitely does. Even today, this morning, I had a very strong episode of anger, but I gave it the time that it needed to work through. I went for a hike. I slowed down. I didn't put pressure on myself, and I just allowed for it to be, allowed for it to cycle through. And then I felt better. And so it's not as frequent. It doesn't last as long. And I'm at more peace with it than I was before. So I hope this offered a little bit more guidance for navigating anger, especially during these hugely transformative times that we're in. And if you would like more assistance and to understand the inner workings of your unconscious self, your subconscious, or your shadow, join me over on the Shadow Project, which is a membership program where I walk through all of the different layers and levels of the unconscious so that we can make sense of our deeper aspects to set ourselves free. The link is below, and I'm wishing you all the best during this time and beyond. See you soon, and take care.